It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to
PureWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at PureWebsites.com.
and welcome everybody to
our
enough of that. This is our weekly wrap-up where we go live, and we're doing it by digital candlelight tonight. You're welcome. I figured that would be a classy way to start out the show with the puppy. Our puppy co-host is here, and he's got his digital candlelight Gen Alpha candle sitting here next to him. Solar-powered LED candle that has a sphere around it so he can't get burned or scared by it. We'll just set that there and illuminate the show that way tonight. Hopefully everybody's having a good evening and a good week. We go live on Fridays to take a look at what happened this week as far as Second Amendment goes. Oh, can I move that around? Double click to toggle spotlight. I don't know what that means. All right, so I think I can get onto this screen over here and start digging in. We do the show live on the internet, and you're encouraged to be part of the show. We cover the latest Second Amendment news, bringing you updates on what's happening with our rights. We will also chat about the talk and gun talk that's happened this week, as well as we'll share some radio shows that are dedicated to our Second Amendment. And we'll take a look at some firearms history if we've got time, as well as some military interview shows. And I think we did a couple of things this week as well we'll talk about. So, nobody's giving me any feedback. I am going to go find the show somewhere and see if our audio is working okay. Most of the people that listen to the show will listen as a podcast, so we thank the folks that do that. Thank the people who leave us some feedback on those platforms out there. And we're testing the audio here. Eventually, maybe. And we're testing the audio here. Okay, there we go. And I've seen the message from that Gizzard's channel sent out when he recommended everybody jump over. Welcome. Ed is out there. Welcome. I don't know what happened there. It's supposed to show up on the screen. Okay, thanks for the feedback. Oh, I see. It scoots it over and lets the puppy sit here. So if I can get this camera down, there we got our candle shot of the puppy. All right, so we're going to dig in. We're going to look at our Substack, which is essentially our blog. The video will be over there, but what we're going to be talking about today is all written down there, and that's sort of the point. We accumulate this stuff during the week. We write it down ideally throughout the week, and then present it here on Friday. But the goal is really to have these links out there on the internet in all different kinds of places in order to help those projects and those people, and then get the word out about those things. So that's what we're here to do, and this is the beginning of this little post, I guess, is to let you know all the different places you can find that stuff. Still getting used to my broken monitor. I'm doing all this kind of blind on a broken monitor. I have the new computer, but I haven't set it up yet. So we're going to be talking about 2A News of the Week. We'll talk about the stuff that was focused on our Second Amendment this week. Then we'll talk about the stuff that was focused on guns this week, two different things. And then we'll focus on the radio shows out there that are focused on what our Second Amendment protects. We'll take a look at some history and then some military interview stuff, which was really good this week. And like I say, then we'll talk about some of the stuff that, what is this? Why is it saying that I disabled playback? Because I did not disable playback. I wonder what's up with that. Oh, I probably played something on that show, like I'm going to do today, maybe. Interesting. So maybe our 4-hour epic marathon got snagged off of YouTube. That might have happened. All right, so ag risers out there, welcome. And we don't see the emojis on the thing, but I think that's what that was saying, that there's an emoji out there. All right, so digging in to when we talk about the, man, I got to get used to this screen. When we talk about the 2A news of the week, most of that I get from a pretty good summary is the NSSF Government Relations newsletter, and this is what it looks like when it comes out each week. And I summarize it because this is just too much. This will take a whole 2-hour show just to talk about it. And what they'll do is, see, this is an article probably. This is a summary of an article. This is a summary of an article. These are summaries of articles. So technically, you'd have to go read the whole article if you really wanted all the news. So they send out a summary in a newsletter, and I summarize that summary. What's gonna get me banned? I don't know what that means. Let's see. So Supreme Court is getting ready to hear a challenge to Mexico's lawsuit against firearms manufacturers. That would be good. Man, I can't get used to the screen being weird. They're talking about the clear contrast on our rights from the vice presidential debate. I don't know about all that. I can tell you that Vance is not prepped or prepared to talk about gun stuff. I hope no one is satisfied with his performance. He did some old-fashioned FUD responses to Waltz's dumbass shit. So obviously Waltz is going to say dumb shit. He gets paid to say dumb shit. But Vance, I was really hoping to hear Vance, bring up some really cutting-edge new either tactics and strategies that we have as the gun community to address the issues, or at least allude to them. But he did neither. He just went back to the old echo chamber stuff. So hopefully people aren't satisfied with that. To me, it was an indicator that we haven't progressed enough, we haven't progressed to the point where the people who are on the big screens know what we're talking about on the ground. So it hasn't trickled up to them, which is sad because we have people like the Women for Gun Rights Project that literally bring current messaging to the representatives. It's just a matter of what they can absorb. So obviously, like I say, Vance was kind of a disappointment there. I mean, he didn't do horrible, but he didn't perform well. Fully summarize, the Justice Department wants you disarmed. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but pretty much. All right, so if I get my screens right here, the NSSF adjusted NICS background. So the National, what's that called? National, why can't I think it? Is the National Instant Criminal, no, National Instant Criminal something. It's been a while since I thought about what NICS stands for. But anyhow, the adjusted background checks from the 4473s. If you look at that graph, it looks like we went down a little bit, but we're pretty high here. As far as the rest of the year, or whatever that's supposed to be on the map. Does it open up? Let's see if I can get this thing to open up. Oh man, I can't see nothing on this screen. Open image and new tab. Oh, these are years, so it's a useless. It's a chopped off picture anyway, so it's a useless picture. It doesn't show anything. Let's see, September 2024, so that just ended, and now we have a figure of 1 million something, an increase of 1.3% compared to 2023. So election year, but 1.3% increase is not a decrease, but it's nothing to be happy about it, I don't think. Let's see. So I'm never a big fan of this one. I don't know why Nix loves it so much. They must spend time working on it or something. And I don't know, it's probably an indicator how many guns are moving, but I don't believe it has anything to do with how many gun owners there are. It says it's the 62nd month in a row that it's exceeded 1 million. That's handy. What would it exceed? What would that number exceed if the entire country had to do universal background checks? It would be billions a month, and it wouldn't mean one new gun owner. It would just mean that they're paying attention to gun sales. And if we let them do that, they'll fall over because they think one gun sale is too many. All right, well, so NSSF opposes an interior proposal to close off 1.3 million acres of this national monument in in Utah, excuse me. So it's a monument. Monuments are created by the president. Monuments are usually designated for something that's fragile, something that's rare, something that is deteriorating. So to have them designate a monument as a no recreation zone, that's not a big deal. But 1.3 million acres of monument, I don't know who let them take 1.3 million acres of Utah for a monument. I think our saguaro national monuments are pretty big, but they're no 1.3 million acres. That's Utah not paying attention. So I don't know. They want it both ways. They want the government to run all their land so they don't have to pay for nothing. But then they also want to use all the land as government land. So what the heck? Hey, I'm in the middle of my show. What's up? You wanted to pick up that wrench right now?
Well, I'm fucking on the side of town. That's all I meant.
When are you going to be over here then? How long are you going to be driving around? Well, I'm doing my show right now, but I can give you a wrench or whatever if you're just going to swing by. Soon, it's just sitting here because I figured I was going to drop it off, but you haven't been available to go out or whatever. Anyway, let me know. I'm going to go back to my show. But if you come by here, just feel free. Just give me a call and I'll give it to you. All right, see ya. All right, that happens. It's only 9 o'clock here. Everybody acts like it's late or something. It's late on your side of the country. It's 9 o'clock here. So, let's see. So 1.38 million acres. That's a lot of acres. But it's a monument, and guess what? The government gets to own the monuments. That's how it works. NSSF, well, that's what they're going to do. They're going to let us know their feelings on it, right? Then we got gun vote, help spread the word. It's not an exaggeration to say this is truly the most critical election for our industry, isn't it? The stakes have never been higher. I think Hillary was worse, but we'll find out. They keep saying approximately 10 million hunters who are unregistered to vote. You really think that the 10 million hunters that are unregistered to vote are reading these emails? I just don't think so. Let's see. U.S. reps and senators boast high NSSF scorecard grade to voters. So, is anybody still deciding who to vote for? I mean, it's kind of late in the game to be sending out a report card, but in a place where you have lots of stuff to vote for, lots of people to vote for, I guess that could be handy. But if you've ever looked at this list, it's massive. There are tons and tons of people in the House. So I did look at it, and a little bit frustrated because they do it alphabetically by the person's last name. Well, I don't care crap about the person's last name. I care about what state I'm in. So why isn't it alphabetical by state? So make it alphabetical all you want, but also arrange them by states first so that those of us in a state can find our people. Let's, for example, look at their dumb list here. Missouri, Tennessee, Virginia, Colorado, New York. I don't know what RND, North Dakota, probably. So none of those are anything. That's alphabetical, not even by anything. So I don't know why they came up with this, but very, very difficult to find a person in your state that you don't know the name of on a list that's pages and pages long when they're alphabetical by name. So I don't know what NSSF is thinking. They're never going to make me believe that they remember everybody by alphabetical name. It makes no sense not to divide the representatives up by state, because again, we could care less about the states we're not in. We need to care about the states we're in. Why make it difficult or almost impossible to use your list? It just makes no sense. So as much as I like NSSF, I'm going to call them out when they do dumb things like that. NSSF supports House oversight investigation of the Biden-Harris and gun control collusion. So there's an oversight committee from the House of Representatives subpoena at the White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention to investigate allegations that the administration wrongfully colluded with the gun control groups. City of Chicago to bring an unfounded lawsuit against a firearm manufacturer. Well, okay, I guess you got to start nibbling somewhere, but do that. And where they even come up with this White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. So that should be oversight committeed as well. That's a bunch of money and for no need, just for political gain. Let's stop this stuff instead of assuming that because they put it out there, we should just fight it. We should be chopping this stuff off. White House forgets firearm industry-led effort to combat illegal gun possession. Again, so White House forgets firearms industry-led effort to combat illegal gun possession. So I guess the Office of Gun Violence Prevention, the GVP, held a webinar on Friday to celebrate 1 year since the office was created and pat itself on the back for accomplishments. It wasn't public, of course. It required prior registration and approval to view. So they're getting petty about the things that they liked about the bipartisan gun control laws of 2020. But yeah, we all talk about Heller, but we don't talk about the bipartisan gun control that happened just a year or two ago. Let's see. So next up is Vice President Harris imports crime while she wants to ban guns. I guess they're yelling about how she went to the border. Kind of too late to complain about that at this point. Name and blame bill introduced to punish firearms retailers. So this guy from California and someone from Maryland introduced companion bills to name and blame firearm retailers and deny them federal contracts over the crimes committed by unrelated third parties. The Clean Hands Firearms Procurement Act would bar firearms retailers from entering into federal contracts if 25 or more guns sold in a single year traced to the ATF within 3 years of that sale for having been recovered at a crime scene. Well, I mean, that's a weird thing to come up with, but if 25 or more guns from a gun shop have been recently at crimes, that's an interesting take. I'm not saying I'm down with that, but at least it's an interesting one. I haven't seen that one before. Let's see. They haven't shown any connection of the firearms retailers in criminal misuse. In fact, the ATF has consistently held the trace data is no way indicative of criminal wrongdoing on the part of FFL. NSSS opposes this misguided legislation. It'd be interesting to talk about that one, but I'd probably oppose it also. Let's see. NSSF presents at GRPC. Interesting. So I think one of the second, maybe the second, or maybe even the first speaker at GRPC, we'll talk about it here in a minute, was this guy from NSSF, who I don't think I've heard of before. And I mean, he wasn't the most boring thing, but he was up against some boring, like professionally boring people. So this guy was 98% boring in a group of people that are 110% boring. So he seemed a little less boring, but holy shit, was it boring. He probably had good information in there. I'm having trouble recollecting it because he was one of the first speakers and it was 18 hours of listening to people. But yeah, it was not anything memorable, and he didn't take the opportunity to impress anyone with anything. He just said a bunch of stuff that we all either know already or we could find out anytime we wanted by reading 2 or 3 paragraphs. So one of the biggest problems I have with GRPC is that it doesn't take advantage of the opportunity of human beings being in the same room together in 2024. We definitely don't need to do whatever we could do online in person. It's such a waste. People spend a lot of money to get there. They take time out of their schedules and like take time to be there. It's a shame, if not a mess, when all they do is read a bunch of shit that's online. It'd be interesting to have a conversation with people about what NSSF could have done at Gun Rights Policy Conference. But instead, they'll probably just pat each other on the back because they spent money to get there and they were given a prime spot, quote unquote. We'll talk about GRPC in a bit here, but yeah. So that's NSSF patting themselves on the back about being at GRPC, halfway down their newsletter. So it's certainly not their number one accomplishment this week. So now we'll get to some state news. Let's see what it says here. Massachusetts Governor Healy short circuits challenge to onerous gun control law. Their dumbass governor signed emergency legislation to thwart an attempt by opponents to challenge the massive gun control bill she signed into law earlier this year that essentially bans nearly all they should just say all firearms in the Bay State. The action immediately enacts the law and prevents a pending petition referendum from pausing the law while it's challenged. She's literally interfering with the democratic process that is unfolding, a constitutional process that is unfolding, said Toby Leary of Cape Gun Works and chairman of the Civil Rights Coalition. This is only an effort to silence the voices of the 85,000 people that will be involved in this campaign. NSSF threw $100,000 at goal for a lawsuit. I don't know if they say they're supporting the efforts to reverse the law that has yet to even see how state police would administer requirements set by the statute. So Massachusetts is a mess, and it's an indicator of the way things could go if people don't pay attention. In Massachusetts, the representatives meet every 72 hours, so they're full-time. Every 72 hours, they're getting together to meddle and to do whatever horrible legislatures do. They create work for themselves. So sometime this year, I think it was all this year, they started farting around and then quickly escalated to essentially the worst set of laws ever. They took every law that's ever existed and put it together, and they had to put a couple of them on top of other laws because they already have a bunch of shitty laws in Massachusetts. So they put all these laws together and smashed them together and kind of forced them in without any kind of actual debate. And the only recourse for the people in the state was to file a request to hold. And the only way you could do that is to have something like 50,000 names on a petition. So they said, hey, we'd like to hold this. The government said, the judges, I guess, said, okay, give us 50,000 signatures and we'll hold it. And then the governor came along and said, no, it's an emergency. We don't have time for this. The bill is just a law now. Click. So starting Wednesday, it's just a law. And it's pretty horrible. And it really can't even work because they're asking the police, for example, to do things that don't exist. And they can't do things that they can't do because the things don't exist. So it's essentially just really a mess. And the worst part about it is, I don't think many people are paying attention. So if they consider this to be a test case, what's going to stop them from doing this in New York? Nobody's going to pay attention. What if they do this in California? A lot of people would just say, yeah, good for California. It's their fault. If they did this in Nevada, they already did. Nobody paid attention. Luckily, the Attorney General in Nevada told them, nope, you can't do it. But essentially, they just did this kind of stuff 2, 3, 5 years ago in Nevada. And they just did it in Oregon not too long ago. They've done it in Washington State. When do we get state, national level organizations that actually combat this stuff instead of just going to their lawsuit hole and hiding in there? Anyway, I'll keep moving. True conservation groups join a letter to oppose Colorado Prop 127. So NSSF cannot get enough of this lion hunting thing going on in Colorado. Here's how predator hunts work. Everybody hates predators, so they kill them all, and then they become endangered, and a couple of people go, what the fuck, you can't kill things off. So they save the ones that are left, and then they start to thrive, and then the ones that are thriving start to kill stuff, and then everybody has a fit, and it all starts over again. So instead of anybody trying to calm anybody's jets or educate or come up with alternatives, we just kill everything for a while until it's extinct, and then we stop, and then we let the things thrive for a while, we protect them, and then when they start to do their thing, we kill them all again. So pretty lame, but happens all the time if you pay attention to the West. We've done this over and over and over, and we'll probably keep doing it until we figure out a way to work together and not just talk at each other. Who's the victim here? Is it the cats? Is it the couple of cows that get ate? Is it the people that get scared all the time by the cats? Is it the deer populations that are kept in check? Like, who's the real victim here? Is it the deer hunters? I don't know. Because the worst that happens when there's a bunch of cats is the deers go down. Let's see. New gun control group aims at state houses. So there's a new gun control group that's determined to bring their anti-gun agenda to the legislators across the country. Legislators for Safer Communities is comprised of 121 state people from 43 states, Amaland reported. The group is exclusively aligned with Brady Gifford's and anti-gun billionaire Bloomberg's groups, Every Town and March. The new group's goal is to work around Congress, which has been resistant to unconstitutional gun control demands. The group, which claims to be nonpartisan but is comprised of only Democrats, offers no information on funding but suggests it has partnered with 5 national gun control groups. So probably Bloomberg again. He likes to change his names once in a while. Makes it easier to scam when people can't keep track of what the hell you're doing. So unscrupulous people who exploit situations will keep changing their name all the time. Florida police chief bans gun sales, quickly reverses course. So we had the rain happen, well, probably more than rain. The hurricane went through, blasted through, and they put up a you can't touch your guns sign, I think, something like that. Like, you're not allowed to carry your guns around. I don't know. We have a lot of stuff going on. This is definitely a learning opportunity, but I don't know if it's going to absorb, because we've seen this obviously happen other times whenever there's emergencies, and then like New Mexico, where there's not even an emergency, it's happening. And what's the kickback there? You know, where's the resistance to what's the governor of New Mexico has been doing over and over with her fake emergency? Let's see. Considering Mexico's adversary advisory opinion on human rights and firearms manufacturers. Inter-American Court of Human Rights. Okay, that's a new one for me. Announced it will deliberate on Mexico's request for an advisory opinion in relation to firearms manufacturers' activities and human rights when the courts convene in October. Mexico's attempting to use the court as a buttress for a $10 billion claim against firearm manufacturers that was previously dismissed in the U.S. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. Mexico is about to change their presidency, so who in Mexico is pushing this lawsuit, and will it keep happening when they change their president? Or did they just change their president? I'm not sure. Nation celebrates National Hunting and Fishing Day. Really? We have a National Hunting and Fishing Day. How about a month? Seems like a day is stupid. Gifford's Gun Control stands up Fuds for Harris group. Yeah, I don't care. Then we've got just them patting themselves on the back, and that usually takes less time. How much time did it take today? 30 minutes. So that's why I try to do that ahead of time and summarize it to just some bullet points and go over them. But when I don't get to do that, I'm not blaming Gizzard, but I was in Gizzard's show today, so I didn't do that. And now it took us a long time to get through the NSSF newsletter. But that's why I skim it down, because it is too long. They spend too much time talking about stuff, and I try to summarize that into bullet points every week. Usually that's right here, but we talked about it this week. So we'll get into the 2A talk next, the stuff that happened pretty much on YouTube. Every once in a while I throw something else in here if I see it. But the stuff that was, or that happened this week, that was focused on what our Second Amendment protects. And I kind of put them in order from the top down of how 2A they are. And pretty much the top of the list, the most effective thing that's happening each week. And why do I say it's the most effective thing? Because it happens each week. Because Brooke, pretty much hell or high water, and every once in a while she'll miss it and do it on the Sunday or something. But she's putting in this deliberate effort, this consistent effort to normalize the conversation about mental health, to normalize the conversation about suicide prevention. And it's not like it's a lecture every week about suicide prevention. It's just a conversation that's short and consistent to keep this in the conversation. And kudos to all the people that join and follow, because those folks are becoming more comfortable and more capable of talking about mental health. If we break our arm, if we get a sore tooth, if we sleep funny and our back hurts, we'll tell people, like, oh, my back hurts, like, oh, my tooth hurts, like, oh, I broke my arm or whatever. Nobody gives a shit. There's no judgment. Like, some people will go, oh, you're an idiot for doing whatever you did to break your arm, or maybe you shouldn't eat so much sugar or whatever. And if you didn't shoot 9mm, your back wouldn't hurt, those kind of things. But instead, when we talk about mental health, well, we don't talk about mental health. Why? Because they don't talk about it on TV, and we only do what we're told to do on TV. So hopefully people will, as generations aren't molded by television shows and movies, maybe we'll see people who are more comfortable talking about mental health is the same as they are the rest of their physical health. And what will the benefit of that be is that people won't feel alone or stressed out, or just whatever the circumstances are where they might get to the whatever you call it, like the reaction type of thing that suicide can be. So one of the ways to deal with that, or to defend against that kind of a future, would be to normalize the conversation about mental health. Have the ability to talk about mental health. It's a admirable goal, and again, there's no one else doing it. We got Walk the Talk America, and they are doing great things, but occasionally, like in spurts, when they got funding, when they're available to do it, when there's not something going on that they're invited to or being part of, then they get to doing some podcasts. Brooke's different. She's not some kind of group. She's not trying to lead nothing. Except for maybe conversation. She's not urging anybody to join anything. She's just trying to normalize the conversation. And again, there's not any other entity out there, large or small, that's even attempting anything close. So thanks to Brooke, DJ, for helping her, and all the people that join, because that's how we will eventually change the playing field, is when the pieces move and not just bounce back and forth on their side, but move in meaningful ways that the other side can understand. And this is an effort that does that. That's why I take the amount of time I do each week to talk about that. That's really the goal of this show, is to link to important projects and people. And Brooke, the person doing this project, is a great example of the kind of thing that deserves that kind of attention and sharing. All right, next up is Colion. He had a conversation with these two girls a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And at the end of the conversation, they said, okay, let's go to the range. And then it took him a while because he's all fancy. He edited it all up or whatever and showed the results of these girls going to the range. It's for like little kids. So, it's for new people. It's novice type of an experience, but it is an interesting experience to see these girls go from not just on the fence, but I guess on the fence, but on the fence, getting ready to jump down on the side if we don't need guns anymore. And after Colion explained some facts to him, kind of had a chance to talk to him where they could understand it and he could listen to them. They ended up being open-minded to firearms a bit more and understanding some of the situations that we are all involved in. And then took them up on an offer to go to the range, and they shot a bunch. It is what it is. It's like I say, it's a bunch of kids shooting in 2024. A little different than what it would have been like years ago. But what are you going to do? Next up is Maj. He's been doing a bunch of stuff. I'll think probably we'll have a couple of things from Maj up here today. But this was a conversation he had earlier in the week with Rhonda Ezel, who, if you're not paying attention, Rhonda Ezel is the only lady around who's taken court cases against the city of Chicago all the way to the Supreme Court and won twice in 2010 and then in 2012, or was it 12 and 14? But after Heller said we have a right to keep and bear, then Miller came along and said, hey, Chicago, that means that you can't prevent people from keeping and bearing. And then Ezel came along and said, hey, Chicago, you can't prohibit us from having shooting ranges. You can't tell us we have to shoot in order to get a what do they call it in Illinois? I forget what they call it in Illinois, but essentially their CCW. You have to shoot. And if you aren't going to allow a range to open in Chicago, that's not fair to the people who live, in Chicago. It's a ton of people. So she took him to court. The Supreme Court said, nah, Chicago, you can't stop somebody from making a range there. 2 years later, Chicago stopped people from making a range there. She took him back to Supreme Court and won again. So always a good time to hear Rhonda talk about those stories, but then also the stuff she's been working on since then, being an advocate and an instructor in Chicago. We don't have very many at all, period, but definitely not many in Chicago. And Maj had maybe like an hour-long conversation. They didn't talk about specifically or just exclusively her projects, but they did talk about lots of different stuff, kind of politics of the day. All right, so this is the Minuteman moment, or whatever it's called now. And it's what's his name from Gun Owners of America, Ben from Gun Owners of America, doing a focus on this new scam that the antis have come up with. If I can remember right, they want I think it's either for 18 to 21 or else it's for veterans. I forget, but it's essentially an extra red flag bill that allows them to then confiscate. So essentially, I think it's from 18 to 21, if I remember this right. So they want to do a catch-22 where it's like a gotcha move, where if you do a 4473, one of the ways they can say no on the 4473 is to look and see if you bought a gun recently. And if you did, then you're a hoarder. And now they can say no on the second gun. But then that also would then, according to this, give them the right potentially to go confiscate that first gun. So you got a gun, you should be happy. You try to get a second gun, you're crazy. And they need to not only prohibit you from getting that second gun, but they need to take away your first gun. And somehow they put that through. And that's for 18 to 21, so nobody's going to care except for kids. And that's how they separate us. So good on Gunners America for making a point about this, and pretty succinctly in 7 minutes, but I don't think that one's getting a lot of traffic. So next up is Four Boxes Diner talking about Massachusetts. And this is probably the only one worth listening to, but if you were to listen to some of the other Sky is Falling ones talking about Massachusetts, welcome to being frustrated that we're not all working at the same. We've got this tug of war that we're doing with the antis, and every once in a while when they really start tugging on the rope and it's time for everybody to grab hold and pull, that's when you realize that there's people standing there that are acting like they're pulling on the rope, but they're standing about 6 feet off the rope trying to get you to do like pull their rope. And when there's no ton of war going on, who cares who's petitioning what rope you pull on? But when there's a need for everyone to be pulling on the same rope, it's very obvious when the others are out there asking you to pull on their rope. All right, so we'll move on. So that there's an interesting insight to hear about how they may have created a new type of gun control. But then if you get down to Four Boxes Diner, he's talking about here something he heard about on the NFL. I'm going to try to remember. When I write these things, or when I first post these things, I'm thinking, how could I forget this? This is such an easy thing to remember. And then half a week later, after everything that happens in the week, I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. He watched the NFL. I think they said something like it only takes 2 minutes to vote. And he said, okay, if it only takes 2 minutes to vote, then why would you not be able to have a gun in the polling place? Like, I forget what his deal was, but it was a pretty interesting point of view, an interesting tactic, another angle. All right, I'm going to drink some more. I don't have a commercial to play for you, so just listen to the commercial to my drinking, I guess. Nobody's saying anything out there, so I'm guessing everybody's asleep. If you're listening as a podcast, welcome. Leave us some feedback out there. We do the show live so that people can listen and be part of the show, but I do it at night because I value the people that are up overnight. I like to do stuff overnight. We have this, the time to ourselves. If it was a, jumping show, we could go live for hours and hours and nobody be able to complain because we could own the night, kind of like Art Bell used to do back in the day. But if nobody shows up, then it just turns into a lecture, super boring for me, and not what I signed up for. So we'll just keep going. Then we have this is pretty neat. This is a Canadian channel that I follow, and they went down to New York to go to a gun show. So someone from Canada checking out at a New York gun show. Very interesting. Then there's the two videos here. This one is, whatever I said, 8 hours. This 9 hours. This one is like 6 hours. That's the Gun Rights Policy Conference. Technically, it was a better production. The production value was higher. They completely ignored the text chat this time. They didn't post it on Facebook or anywhere else, or Rumble or any of the other alternative platforms. They posted it on Vimeo, which they have to pay for, and they posted it on YouTube. So all day Saturday, I posted throughout the day the tallies, how many people were watching on YouTube, how many people were watching on Vimeo. It never got over 50 together. It was usually like 10 over on Vimeo, 8, 6, sometimes 10 at the most. I don't think it ever got even to 12. Where on YouTube, it got to like 42 a couple of times, maybe. I don't even think it got to 50. And it was weird because even when the most popular, the most like largest names or whatever, the people with the biggest followings, when they were on, it was no different than, the spikes were just kind of randomly at odd times throughout the convention. So there was no coordination, or the people that had huge followings weren't bringing their followings to Gun Rights Policy Conference. Let's put it that way. So they often, well, at least back in the day, they used to try to act like there was so many thousands of people listening to the Gun Rights Policy Conference on Facebook. Well, Facebook is fake numbers. They're trying to compete with YouTube. They'll count somebody who's in the same room with a computer that's watching the thing as two counts, as two views. So the numbers on Facebook were always false, like hugely falsely exaggerated. And everybody knew that. So no one ever used Facebook numbers except for the Gun Rights Policy Conference. They would consistently act like hundreds of thousands of people. I think they even said like tens of thousands or maybe even 100,000 people watched it one year. So delusional. So this time it was very easy to monitor how many people were watching. And like I say, I'd be surprised if more than 50 concurrently were watching at any one time on the entire Saturday session. Most of the time, it was closer to like 30 people watching on both platforms. Sunday was short as usual, and for all kinds of reasons, that's stupid. And the viewership was even lower. So, yeah, not too many people watched it. I put a poll up to see what people thought about it. Back in the old days, back in the Gun Channels days, there was quite a few people that fancied themselves activists or interested in activists, whatever you want to call it, like people that paid attention to what was happening and the potential that we had. You know, it was the earlier days when we still had quite a few gun owners' rights groups that started in 2015, a bunch that started, just a few years earlier, and then a bunch that had been around for a long time that had been really making some major wins. We had, great momentum with constitutional carry. We had already completed all 50 states with concealed carry. No one even brings that up anymore. But, in the history of YouTube, we started out with about 20 states with concealed carry. And we went from just a few states with concealed carry to all 50 states with concealed carry. Then they went to constitutional carry. There's people that didn't even own a gun until there was constitutional carry in their state. So, back in the days watching the Gun Rights Policy Conference between 2015 and maybe 2020, there were quite a few people, and they get frustrated and they'd pay attention to these shows, and the production values were, I don't want to be mean, but they were not good. And they've changed a little bit. The amount of money they poured into it is probably disgusting. So I won't get into that. But they are not frugal or economical with their technology at all. They're either completely none, or they pay way too much. They certainly don't moderate. They aren't moderate with their production values. It's either 100%, or maybe not 100, but it's either really good or it's not even good. All right, well, so that's the end of the gun stuff. That was the end of the 2A stuff. Now we'll get into the gun stuff. So on Tuesdays, the Gun and Gear Review podcast goes live. They go live and chat. Then they turn it into a podcast. I've been watching now that it's on YouTube. I don't really pay a lot of attention to gear reviews and gun reviews, but they do a bunch of them, and they, chat and stuff. So it's worth checking out if you want to check it out. Every once in a while, I'll check out Musasho's channel, and this one was just an interesting thumbnail. I personally hate this gun, but a lot of people liked it, and I didn't know what he had. So I clicked on it to watch what was up. And I think he's got a real upper on like a Palmetto State lower or Anderson lower or something, and then a pistol brace. So it's like a little weird hybrid. But, if you wanted to fiddle around with a 9mm subgun, that's about the closest, that's the easiest way to emulate one. I forget, this video's, I didn't watch the whole video, but it's, I think it's a whole video. It's a full video. Melissa did a video hanging out at the shop talking about all the different things that they've got going on over there. So it's a pretty fun video just to kind of watch the stuff that's at Dragon Man's right now. Gun shops look different than they did 10 years ago, for sure. Guns are all over the place with their designs and their accessories. Tim is joining us. Welcome. Hope you're having a good evening. All right, so another one from Maj. I thought this one was pretty good just from the title, Make It Enough. I personally don't like the simplification that, we should be isolationists and screw all the other countries. Well, that's how you get other countries to stab you in the back or whatever. Oh, what did I get? I have to go look at something real quickly. So, I don't like the oversimplification, certainly not by people that aren't paying attention. I think Maj does a pretty good job of paying attention to what's going on. I don't agree with him on 100% of everything, but I did think this was an interesting take where, after spending so much money on other countries that, I do want this thing. Oh, 1 minute. Okay, I'm bidding on some stuff and I lost something that I kind of want, so I'm going to throw $7 on it, see if I get it. Ooh, I got it for $5. Let's see if I got it. I got myself a smartwatch for $8. Let's see if that happens. Got 22 seconds left on that. Dang it, somebody stole that light away from me again. It's a $66 light that right now is at $8. And I kind of want, oh, they took my watch away from me too. You can have the watch, I don't really want it, but the light I kind of wanted. I don't really want to pay $8 for it though. So I guess I'll just close this window and not talk about it. We already screwed up this show a couple of times. So make it enough. I thought that was pretty good. You know, after spending billions on other countries, which again is an oversimplification to say that we should just tell the other countries to screw off. But at the same time, we don't have to give them money that we don't have, right? So especially if it's war stuff, I can totally understand. And it's one thing to give a bunch of money to a country for war stuff, you know, if nothing else is going on. But then when a hurricane happens and you ain't got enough left to do the job you're supposed to be doing, then, or what people signed up for, then you start getting into issues. So, you know, the whole $750 was a bit of a gotcha because I'm sure there's going to be more. They're Democrats. They love to give other people's money away. They're going to give more money away. But if their first reaction is, "Oh, we got for you $750," it definitely is worth the what's it called? You know, worth bringing it up and rubbing it in their faces because it's a dumbass thing to say. And Maj basically goes through and, you know, you see somebody's house is gone, somebody's neighborhood is gone. Here's $750. Like, what a dumb thing to even say. So anyway, interesting little thing. It got cut short because he had a fire alarm go off. Whatever building he was in, the fire alarm went off, so the video got cut short. And then he started traveling. So I believe today he's in Chicago, and a couple of days from now he'll be, oh, I forgot all the different things. Baton Rouge, someplace in Georgia, maybe. He'll be in Arizona, a couple of different places around the country for the next few weeks doing free classes. So Solutionary University, we'll keep going. So one of the days during this week, was it Wednesday? One of the days we talked about Kiwi Ted, and there's a bunch of people that don't know who Kiwi Ted is. So Dragon Man is somebody that people know, and he's not the only person that collects stuff. In the olden days, back in the day, oh man, it's not going to show the video, so I guess it ain't going to show the video. Back in the olden days of the YouTube, though, we had a friend from New Zealand join the community, and he was called Kiwi Ted, and you can kind of see the preview window as it pops up. In New Zealand, you can have whatever you want, you just can't shoot it, and you can't have ammo or something. So he would buy all kinds of guns. His whole room was filled up with all kinds of cool guns. He likes World War II guns mostly. So it was a bunch of these World War II guns, and he could get everything he wanted from the warlords in the islands, you know, throughout Asia. So he had access to tons of cool stuff, and then he would go on buying trips and even buy more stuff when he would be in Europe and in America and stuff. So then they say that you can't own it, or you can own it, but you can't shoot it. So what he would do is take his stuff out on a boat and drive 3 miles off the shore or whatever and start shooting out there. And they got mad at him, and he would, you know, make videos about that. But they also made a big deal about when you own these guns, they have to be locked up. So Ted was not poor at any means. So he built this section of his house that was all super reinforced with metal walls and stuff. And more than one time, he kind of expanded his gun room, his gun collection. And this was a 2-minute tour after, I don't know, acquiring some new stuff. I think he had gone on a trip or something and bought some new stuff. And then, you know, you can kind of see how his museum / war room, gun room is set up. And then he was gone. Like, he started traveling a little bit, and then nobody heard from him again. So anyway, that was kind of a discussion that came up. I figured I'd throw that in as a blast from the past if people remember Kiwi Ted, or if you just want to go watch some old interesting movies or videos of what it was like back in the, I think, 2012 time frame, maybe 2015, I think, something like that. It was a while ago. All right, so now we'll get into some radio shows that we listen to. The first one will be Cape Gun Works. They do a couple of different shows each week, and now even more. They normally would do a show on Sunday, a show on Tuesday, which is a segment of a radio show, and then they record their own radio show on Wednesdays. But with all the stuff going on, and the host of their show, Toby, being the one of the people in the new organization to fight their governor's tyranny, Toby has been on lots and lots of shows, different radio shows, different podcasts, people wanting to pick his brain, people wanting to interview him, people wanting to get the word out and stuff. So this is when he's on the Howie Carr Show, another radio show in Massachusetts, helping to get the word out about this. But I could have probably linked to 10 different things that Toby did this week. All right, next up is Gun Owners Radio. They hosted the Gun Rights Policy Conference this week, or that weekend. So this was their show after the Gun Rights Policy Conference, and they go live for a couple hours out of San Diego each week. Definitely worth listening to. Let's drink something. Let's all drink something. This would be where a commercial would go if I had better production value. Do you want some of this? I don't want some dog drinking out of my canteen. You can't tell, but I'm getting the stink eye. Let me see if I can bring him up. See, I'm getting the stink eye. He's happy, and then I look over at him, I get the stink eye. Could give me a stink eye, buddy. All right, so look how tired he is. He's bored of gun rights. He says, I don't care about your gun owners' rights because he doesn't own any guns, he thinks. How do I get him back on here? Boom. What happened to my boy? Am I still on here? All right, now I'm on here. Now it's on here. And now I want to go back to here. Come on. Oh, what did that do? That's wrong. Are you okay? What are you doing? Look at him. He's getting all weird. Oh. There he goes. Now he's back where he's supposed to be. Just stay down there. All right. So, Cape Gun Works, Gun Owners Radio, and the trifecta, when they do it, is Eye on the Target Radio. And I suspect because Rob and Amanda and everybody else was in San Diego at the Gun Rights Policy Conference, they went live after the conference and hosted the radio show, I think in one of their hotel rooms or something. And, it's Eye on the Target Radio. It is what it is. All right, so I'm going to play this and get copyrighted, so you're welcome, but it's funny. I think it's funny. If I talk during it, then it won't be copyright. Is that how it works? You get the idea, though, right? They stuck their faces on top of the Dukes of Hazzard. It's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Like, oh, okay, that's funny. And yeah, this is funny or whatever, right? Okay, I guess that's funny, even though it's his sister, but whatever. I didn't realize that's Obama. This is where it started getting funny. So they put Rush Limbaugh in there, but then wait for it, here it comes. This is my best part, this is my favorite part, not this part here. Nope, not this. This is pretty good though. I started laughing right here, right there. Okay, I'll quit playing it because I'm sure that copyrights me now. But I tried talking over it. Maybe that didn't get me. I don't know if you've seen that yet, but I thought that was hilarious. I just seen that on Wednesday. All right, what time is it? We're only about an hour in. We'll head over to Gun Calendars, which is its own website. What? Well, they must sell calendars. They're probably trying to get you to sign up for some kind of email list. Nope. We've got Patreons, and those Patreons let us host all kinds of websites, including guncalendars.com. And guess what? It's just a calendar, nothing to buy, no email, nothing like that. And it just has events that are coming up, events that have already happened, like the history, and then maybe this is the something awareness month or something like that. We try to show that kind of stuff. Oh, it's just the Rod of Iron Freedom Festival. I didn't even hear. Oh no, that's still coming. Why do I think that this is today? Okay, it hasn't happened yet. All right, hold on. Little co-host is freaking out. What do you want there, buddy? You're done? You're done being the co-host? You're going back down? He's leaving. He's done with this show. Doesn't want to be up here anymore. I don't care how many times I watch Gizzard's show, he never gives his co-host as many kissies as this co-host gets. That's why sorry, Gizzard, but until you start giving your co-host that many kissies, it's going to have to deal with it. So let's see, can I now make this full screen? We'll get rid of him. Am I still here? I think I'm still here. All right, so Blade Show is happening this week. So is the big Ohio Cartridge Show, which is pretty neat. One day I'll get to that. Next week, tomorrow, Monday, is the anniversary of Browning patenting his first firearm back in 1879. The guy that took us from single-shot pistols into lever actions, into machine guns, and then semi-automatics, and then bunch of other things as well. But his first patent for his first firearm, 1879, happens on Monday. Next weekend is the 6th annual Rod of Iron Freedom Festival, which is held by Car Arms and other companies that they own in Pennsylvania. Gun Prom is next weekend in San Diego at the Town and Country Mission Valley, California. Oh, in Mission Valley, California. Okay, I have no idea. Well, it says San Diego, so I'm assuming that's San Diego. But that's a fancy dress dinner party that the San Diego gun owners have been doing for a while now. Very cool. Then we have Columbus Day, which is also Indigenous Peoples Day. And then and that's on the 14th. Then we have the National Association of Sporting Goods Wholesalers, which is kind of like a little tiny SHOT Show. And that happens in different places around the country each year. Used to be that only Gun Blast went to this one, but some people go to it. And that happens for a number of days. Every once in a while, a new gun will premiere there, but typically it's sort of a rerun of SHOT Show, just way later in the year. Then we have a couple of anniversaries of things. We have the Liberal Gun Club having their annual meeting in Las Vegas coming up on next weekend. No, 2 weekends from now. We have a couple other anniversaries, including the gunfight at the OK Corral and that protection of lawful commerce and arms that's always so controversial for, well, I wouldn't say for no reason. It's controversial because the antis understand that that's what prevents them from suing gun companies out of existence, like Mexico is trying to do right now. So that started in 2005. The lawful protection of commerce, and that happened. You're welcome. Thanks to Glock. So there you go. Let's see. We got Halloween coming up, the first day of American Indian Heritage Month, and daylight savings time. That couldn't come close and fast enough because I'm sick of having to do the show at 9. I'd like to do the show at 10 again. Patriots out there, welcome. Can't do the Ninja tonight, I don't think. Maybe I can. Let me see what I got for videos over here. I think I only posted like one video. I think I did post the right one, though, so maybe I can't do the Ninja thing tonight. I'm still learning the new system over here. Uh-oh, I'm clicking around the buttons. But welcome. Thanks for staying up. Otherwise, I think I'm done talking about the calendar. You can go check it out anytime you want. It's free. There's no access or nothing. The Patreons make it happen. And gives us a chance to kind of chat about that stuff. But the idea is if you're going to the gun shop or the range or the gun show or something, and you want to have something to talk about, you want to look like a big deal in the gun industry, then you can go check out Gun Calendar, see what's coming up, and act like you know about what's going on in the world. And thanks to all the people that keep us up to date on that. We spend, hours each year. Once, a couple of times a year, I'll spend a few hours making sure everything's updated. And then throughout the year, when people let us know about stuff or we, discover stuff along the way, we'll make whatever additions we can so that it becomes an archive of everything that's happened, but also an announcement place, or a place to remind people and let people know about what's coming. All right, had another coughing fit there. I don't think you heard it. So let's get into these military interview shows. I don't even remember how long ago I started listening to these. My one friend reads a lot of military books, and he was always bugging me to listen to somebody's podcast, I think. Or he would talk about somebody's podcast all the time. And I could care less. But then I watched one or two of them, and I was like, oh my goodness. Like, he didn't ever tell me, I guess he couldn't know, that how interesting these podcasts are, because while they're a military interview, they're an interview from some military people, they're interviewing some other military people. You're only in the military for a couple of years and you're alive for dozens and dozens of years, so people have much more life experience before and then after the military, especially adults. They're usually not interviewing 18-year-olds who are, in the middle of their military career or whatever. They're usually interviewing adults who've gone through, done their thing, come out, done some other things, and now you're having this conversation about the things that happened. And those lives, the transition stories, the origin stories, ultimately fascinating, but the stuff that the experiences and the adventures that they have and the projects that they undertake due to their experiences and due to their skill sets, when you get a bunch of people who are told you can do it and proven, or have had it proven to themselves that they are capable of doing things that most people wouldn't understand you can do. When you've done that and you've weathered through that, either through good or bad, and now you're done, as long as you don't burn out, you have a lot of potential. And the stuff that military veterans are able to accomplish is vast. Patriot saying, I like the Veterans Project, where they interview old timers. That's a neat one. I've only listened to old timers when they're on the podcast that I listen to, but I do know that I think it's the Medal of Honor Museum, like they do a podcast, I think, and they do, since there's only so many Medal of Honor recipients, they talk to people about other people, and those tend to be older. And then there's just been some other individual things I've seen where someone wanted to archive the stories of a grandpa or, General so-and-so or Colonel such and such, and sit them down and have a conversation. They're not professional interviewers and they're not librarians or something, but the conversations are great. Patriot saying, there are several veterans projects for the Library of Congress. Have you checked those out? No, because I only got so much time. So these I listen to while I'm doing stuff, and for the most part, they're current. So we'll talk about them here in a minute. So the first one is, which one was this? Okay, this one was the Omni X, this SEAL guy who is on Ironclad. So Ironclad is a channel, and they have a bunch of different projects that I listen to, and I almost never listen to Omni X because I don't listen to that much stuff, and I don't like this guy that much. And it's also who he interviews. I don't like who he interviews, so I've hardly ever listened to him. This one I listened to because it says right on there, suicidal thoughts, right? So I'm like, oh, okay, they're going to be talking about suicide. I'm listening to this. So this guy's like a vet bro, and he's talking to a veteran who is a clinical psychologist who was in the military, he's in the Army. No, he's in the Air Force, I think. Then I think he went to the Army. But anyway, he was a military psychologist and now, has some insight and some awareness. So anybody can be a psychologist, I guess. But to understand military is, you probably got to be in the military, or at least maybe have family in the military or something. Like, you have to be adjacent to the military. Most psychologists have nothing to do with the military, so what do they know? So anyway, this was a pretty interesting conversation, but eye-opening, because again, the guy that is the host of the show got to one part, maybe about a third of the way in, and he goes, "Is this right that 2/3 of gun deaths are from suicide?" And he was like knocked down. He'd never heard that before. And I guess you're allowed to keep your head in the sand, or you're allowed to just not give a shit about things like that. But since it's so common knowledge for everybody on our side of the, you know, hobby, that super frustrating to hear somebody who's, you know, doing a successful podcast in front of a bunch of people, never even thought about, never been confronted with the idea that 2 out of 3 deaths that they complain about are from suicides. And this guy, you could kind of just see the gears working. He could immediately figure out, well, suicides, like, well, those are mostly veterans, aren't they? Duh, you know, like, so that's part's frustrating. It's not his fault. He's just living his life. Whose fault is it? It's the fault of the 3-letter organizations at our national level. We pour millions and millions and millions, tens of millions of dollars into them, and they all just say, "Oh, the NRA didn't do it, so we don't have to do it." It's bullshit. But we live in a world where massive podcasts like this can do a whole entire show about suicide and veterans, and not know can do this show and be like educated in the show in real time that 2 out of 3 deaths are from suicide. Just, I want to say pathetic, but it is kind of pathetic. Anyway, not worth watching or anything. I was really disappointed after I watched this thing. They're not quite anti-gun, but they were certainly ready to make laws against things and require things like. And it was a doctor and a guy who never questioned anything before. He's a SEAL. You'd think he'd be capable and shit, but he's never questioned anything before. Like I say, he was satisfied to let everyone know that he had never thought about how many people die from guns, you know, on the middle of his podcast. And then at the end of the podcast, they're talking about like boxes that you put a gun in and how that's going to save things, when they're not even really having a conversation. They're just echo chambering each other with like essentially an anti-gun concept. So it was a little bit frustrating towards the end, but I know that they're not going to follow through. I don't think they're anti-gun. They were just playing around with anti-gun propaganda because there was no one there with real modern point of view or modern examples to show them of how stupid it is to suggest that the government requiring us to put guns in a box is going to actually do anything. But they keep moving. They did have some interesting stuff as well, and there is some there is something to the idea that it's an impulse, and if you put some kind of a barrier, even if it's just keeping it out of sight, out of mind, they just never thought that, hey, that can be done without the law. Like that can be done without some kind of requirement by government to do so. That can just be done. But I'm sure they would be open to it as soon as someone challenged them with their anti-gun kind of slipping there. All right, now we're moving on to another one from Ironclad. And trust me, I'm not watching Ironclad because I like their editing. This is another example of it. Shitty, horrible editing. The volume is shitty. Like, I don't know. They must watch the show. They're just satisfied with it, I guess. But it's just distracting to me how bad it's edited. But anyway, this was a conversation with this guy who is a author. And man, I watched this thing like 4 times and I probably didn't absorb it ever. So I'm going to quit watching it. It's interesting. It gets into some real nuts and bolts of what's going on inside the cartels, but I was just too busy this week, I guess. I didn't really absorb this one. This one I watched live. This is what's his face and the other guy, Mike Glover and Andy Stumpf. Yeah. They're both SEALs, I think, talking about deep fakes and whether or not that should be regulated by the government. So vet pros are cool. They did a lot of cool stuff, but they are right there next to making, government laws. Like they are okay with government laws sometimes. That's a little scary. But they didn't actually say we should have a government law, but you could tell that they would be okay if there was a government law for deep fakes. But they both understood that's First Amendment thing and that, they'd rather wing it and have to deal with the deep fake than have to have a law about it. Let's see. Then I think that's the last one. But one of my favorite ones has always been the Team House. Up until recently, they've been dropping to Borderlands, some of my favorites now, and Combat Story, which I didn't include this week for some reason. But Team House is a top one of the ones I almost always listen to. They have a great like thing going where they have some returning guests and stuff, so they've really got a culture that they're creating over there. Well, they got to 300 episodes and they're nerds, so they played D&D. They played Dungeons and Dragons for 3 hours on Thursday night, and I was working on this project and needed something to listen to, and it was actually pretty interesting listening to the dungeon master and 3 people go through a dungeon for 3 hours. It's been a long, well, I guess I technically have played Dungeons and Dragons like last year. One of my friend's kids started playing, and we went over and played. But that's, playing with a kid. It's been a long time since, well, it's probably been since I was a kid that I actually played and knew all the rules and everything. But it was definitely an experience. So if you ever thought about Dungeons and Dragons, or, if you've never played the game but you've wondered what it's like to see what an actual game is like, this is a pretty good indicator. Now, it's a little bit fancy because these are like adults and they got lots of money and time. But pretty interesting to listen to it. I ended up listening to about halfway of it, started to listen about halfway through, and then I went back and listened to the front half just because it was so interesting. I'm not going to say the whole entire thing is like you're going to stop everything and just watch it, but like I say, I was working on some stuff, and it was like an alternative to a movie or a podcast to listen to. Nigman is saying, howdy, I passed through your neck of the woods on Wednesday and saw a nice billboard as you were heading east that there was a gun show on October 26th. I'm in Texas. Too bad I'll miss it. Let me think. Have I been to Texas gun shows? I don't know that I've ever been to a Texas gun show. Let me think. I don't think I have. So I don't know what a Texas gun show is like. They might suck, honestly. I don't know. I don't remember anybody ever talking about them. I know I tried to go to a Texas gun show in 2018 when I was driving through. I really tried to plan on one, but then some hurricane happened. Everybody went to Houston, and then all the gas out of San Antonio was gone. So it ended up being an adventure in trying to get through Texas with gas rationing. So that was a weird situation. But you're saying that the billboard was heading east on Tucson. So I'm trying to think of where the billboards are that would have a gun show. But if it's a billboard, it's probably Crossroads. So we have currently two, maybe 3 gun show promoters. One that's big, and they do shows in California, Arizona, Utah, Nevada, and maybe somewhere else. And then, or at least in the past, they've done them in other places. And then the newer one is called like Gun Show TV, I think. The first one is Crossroads, and they do stuff all over the whole West. And then there's this Gun Show TV, and they've just recently started going to other states and other places. I think I've seen them go to New Mexico, and then they went to California. So it could have been either one of those, and I just haven't been to a gun show in such a long time that I haven't even been paying attention. Oh, you know where that billboard might have been? Was it by the swap meet, the indoor swap meet? Was it by the electric factory? Like, we have a giant electric factory on the north side of the I-10 when you're right in the middle of, pretty much right in the middle of town, just south of downtown. So when you're just about going past our electric factory, just before it going east, right before it, you would have gone past the indoor swap meet, and they have a billboard there usually if they have a gun show. And they do have gun shows at that indoor swap meet. So, and especially this time of year, because it's air conditioned in there, kind of. So, and that would have been Gun Show TV doing their show in there. Where does Crossroads would do theirs out at the fairgrounds, and I don't know if I've ever seen a billboard for. Actually, I have, but those billboards would be up on the north side of town. But anyway, either way, our shows are pretty awesome. Back in the day, I mean, I probably is such a. This is called the Daily Gun Show, right? Like, I'm a big fan of gun shows. I've been to gun shows in lots of different states, and I've been to a lot of Arizona gun shows. I've worked for and with the promoters over the years, and like I say, just attended a ton of them. I don't even know how many venues anymore. So the ones in Tucson compared to other places they're not the best or nothing, but they're super good. Like I'm a collector, and I've collected some really, really cool things. Like, I've seen some really cool things at our gun shows. Tucson is like that. We're big enough that we attract a lot of stuff. Like, we get stuff from all the little towns around here, and it's large enough that a bunch of people come to town to do it. But it's not so large that it's huge. And some of the huge gun shows are so full of dumb stuff, like plates and remote control airplanes and just stupid things, that they're more like some kind of flea market gun show. The Tucson gun shows are typically mostly gun shows and a great mix of collectors. And because they're kind of small, you don't get the professional gun show people showing up very often. So the gun shows tend to be a little bit more, like homey or personal. And yeah, a lot of fun. As I was headed east out of town on my way to Texas. Yeah. Well, if you're not used to Tucson, like I say, it's kind of tough to know. Like I say, the best thing I can think of would be our giant electric factory on the north side of the town, on the north side of the highway if you're driving past. If it was during the day. I mean, if it was at night, you wouldn't even see the thing. But essentially, Tucson's pretty much one story. Every once in a while, we get like a 2-story building. The electric factory is like, 1,000 stories tall or something. It's huge, big smokestacks and all that. It's like a or electric factory. Anyhow, so we've got pretty decent gun shows. I wouldn't drive all the way back from Texas or nothing, but let me think. No, shit. Have I been to a gun show in El Paso? I definitely been to gun shows in New Mexico, but I don't think I've been to one in El Paso, and I don't think I've been to one with Edge in El Paso in San Antonio. Clover's never invited me to a gun show, just saying. And then I don't think I've ever been to one in Dallas. Man, have I been to one in Dallas? I feel like I might have been to one in like Fort Worth or something when I was at Gun Rights Policy Conference. But I could be thinking of an Albuquerque one. Because a lot of times when I'm driving through a city, especially if I've been to their gun shows before, like I'll haul ass and get to one, even if I can only get to it for a few hours on a Sunday, I'll still do it just so I can say I've been to the gun show or something. But I can't remember if I did that in Houston. I kind of feel like in Fort Worth at the Gun Rights Policy Conference, I may have ditched out on Sunday, like right after it ended, and then booked over to a gun show. Man, that's hard for me to remember. I think I'm conflating Texas and New Mexico, though. Enigma saying the two best gun shows I've been to were California Pomona back in the day and Oklahoma. Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the Wanamaker show in Oklahoma, it's amazing. I'm assuming other gun shows in Oklahoma are good because Oklahoma is probably a good place for gun shows in general. And I've heard so many good things about the California gun shows. They used to be the king of gun shows back in the height of importation and stuff, because a lot of stuff was, I guess, getting off the boats and dropping off at the gun shows before it ever went to the stores or anything. So I've heard amazing stories of California gun shows, but no, never been to one. Have I ever been to a California gun show? No. Thought about driving out there. No, I have been to a California gun show. This year. Yeah, Wanamaker's awesome. All right, so D&D, that was an interesting little topic or an off-topic thing to kind of watch yesterday. And then me and Tony started doing the Ask Gun questions last week, and I think both of us were like, let's not make this one last forever, because the show before was like 4 hours long, and then we ended up going like 5 hours. So I don't know why this video says it's unavailable.
Hey, welcome everybody to another edition of our Ask Gun.
Okay, well, they let me go. So there it is. So 4 hours and 13 minutes of me and Tony talking. If you want to listen to it, you're welcome to. And that's why we do it. So we'll probably be doing it tomorrow. Nowhere near 4 hours. We can't spend that much time on it every week. But I'm done with my big projects. Unless a big project comes along, which would be great because I like paying bills. But if no projects come along here, I'm back to my normal schedule. So anticipate more of the normal stuff coming, like actual shows. And that last segment of this show is where I would bring those other shows up. If there's some other segment or something from back in the day that you'd like to see again, just in case I'm talking to somebody who's been paying attention for a while, feel free to suggest topics or segments or anything like that. We've obviously done them before. We can do them again. But it looks like we're at the end of the show. Did pretty good. Got it in about 90 minutes here. Since this is a podcast mostly, we do get some people joining us live, but this is mostly a podcast. This is probably good. 90 minutes, probably a good time for it. Nobody else saying anything else live, so thanks to Enigma, Mr. Enigma, for joining us. Thanks to Patriot saying hey, Gizzard, if you're still out there. Tim, welcome. Agorizer. And I feel like there was somebody else. Ed, was there somebody else besides that? If I'm missing you, so I apologize. But if you were out here and you didn't say nothing, how would I even know? How would I even know? So use the internet. The way that it works is you type stuff on your end of the internet, and a bunch of tubes and whistles happen, and then on my side of the internet, the words pop up. It's almost like magic. And then we're able to post those on the screen like this, and just like that, you become part of the show. It's amazing. All right, with that, we are about to end it. Not usually up this late. I hear that. We've been pretty inconsistent. I've been pretty inconsistent with the show. Like I said, I've had like a month-long project I've been working on. It just barely ended, and I can kind of get my shit together, as they speak, again. And we do the show in the middle of the night, typically, but the last couple of weeks I've been doing it. I've been falling asleep and doing it in the morning when I wake up. So like 4 a.m. for me. This week, though, we're back on a regular schedule. I really like how this thing, with it's like all lo-fi because of the darkness in here, this thing is glowing all crazy. It doesn't look that cool in person. It kind of looks like this in person, but it's making it like a really dramatic effect here. So I'm just kind of playing with that, I guess, a little bit. Gun Metal guys out there, welcome. Hope things are going well on your end of the internet. That's it. Now we can say we're going to end it. I do have the video to end it with for Patriot. Thanks again to our Patreons, the folks that financially support what we're doing here. I don't have the little scroll happen at the bottom of the screen, but as I learned how to use this, I'm pretty sure there is a scroll here. I'll put that message back up to thank those folks who have been. There's been some people on Patreon that have been with us since like the Gun Channel days, so like 2015 or 17 or something. So when I started Patreon, we were able to travel the country with Patreon. We've done stuff like help support gun shows and gun shops all over the country with Patreon. And now I just got done paying for a bunch of domain names, which is never fun, but lots and lots and lots of money for that. And the Patreons are what make that possible. So things like gun calendars and Minuteman University and it could go on and on. We have hundreds of websites. Like why all those websites are able to exist, and not one of them is searching for an email address. Not one of them is a alternative way to just get you to buy something. I mean, I definitely got websites for that, but they have nothing to do with guns. So thanks to the Patreons, we're able to keep all of that typical internet capitalism away from the gun stuff, and that's not an accident. That's definitely an intent. So thank you to those Patreons that make that possible. Head over to patreon.com/gunwebsites, be part of the team, and we'll be back to pick you up later.
Shit. Ninja? Ninja! Ninja!
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.